The White House just out with a new blistering response for Democrats after they released emails written by Jeffrey Epstein that reference President Trump. Here's Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency?
In one email from 2011, Epstein writes, quote, "The dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted victim spent hours at my house with him." House Oversight Republicans earlier questioned why Democrats redacted the name, saying, quote, "It's because this victim, Virginia Giuffre, publicly said that she never witnessed wrongdoing by President Trump." We have CNN's Caitlin Collins, who is live at the White House. Caitlin, we heard Leavitt address this meeting at the White House that's expected to happen today. It does include Congresswoman Lauren Boebert. What have you learned about it?
Yeah, Brianna, two things stood out to me from that briefing. Obviously, Karoline Leavitt was saying that they believe these emails prove that President Trump did nothing wrong. Obviously, he isn't accused of any wrongdoing. We made that clear in our reporting this email. They just shed new light on Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump multiple times in private correspondence over the span of about 15 years. They did not deny that Donald Trump spent time with Virginia Giuffre at Jeffrey Epstein's house. That is obviously what Jeffrey Epstein was insinuating in that email to Ghislaine Maxwell from April 2011. But obviously they were critical, highly critical of Democrats on the House Oversight Committee for releasing these emails that they got as a result of that bipartisan subpoena. But it was a pretty short briefing, Brianna. Obviously it was about 1:25 or so when the press secretary came out with the FBI director, Kash Patel, who gave an opening statement that was unrelated. It had to do with fentanyl and China. He left without taking questions. And then Karoline Leavitt delivered her own opening statement before taking questions. So relatively few questions in that briefing there, but obviously several of them were about these new emails from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell and to the author Michael Wolff. And the other thing that stood out is that meeting that we exclusively reported on here at CNN, where the White House was hosting Lauren Boebert, a Republican congresswoman of Colorado, who has said, yes, she agrees that the White House and the administration should have to release all of their files related to Jeffrey Epstein that are inside the Justice Department. They described it kind of as a routine briefing, as you heard her saying there, about transparency, that when members of Congress want to be briefed, that they should be briefed. Let me tell you, Brianna, it is incredibly unusual for the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the FBI Director to brief a single member of Congress. They weren't briefing her because she was the chair of a committee on a pressing matter. If she wanted to talk about the Epstein files, and that is what they talked about, it is unusual to have that high level of Justice Department power sitting down here at the White House with a Republican congresswoman. But what also stood out from that is Karoline Leavitt is confirming our reporting that, yes, that meeting did take place. And of course, a question is the White House's effort to try to get some of these Republican members to take their name off of that petition, and whether or not it will be successful, that still remains to be seen. But to describe that as a routine briefing, it is certainly not, Brianna.
Yeah, and as you are certainly aware, because you've reported so many times on meetings, it's not unusual for when the president wants something from someone to have them to the White House for a meeting. So it's really interesting to see. That's something that certainly raises questions. Caitlin, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Boris?
Let's get some perspective now from Dave Ehrenberg, a former state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Dave has known Attorney General Pam Bondi for many years. He worked as her drug czar in the Florida Attorney General's office. Dave, thank you so much for being with us. Generally, I wonder what you make of the correspondence that we're seeing between Epstein and his associates.
Boris, good to be with you. I think it's bad for three people in particular. First, Donald Trump, because this is a story that won't end. It's not going to end until the files are released. It's a drip, drip, drip. And there's no indication that President Trump did anything illegal, but his association with Epstein is what it is, and he needs to get in front of this story instead of letting this define him, because he's sitting back and there's just a constant drip of information that makes him look bad and makes his supporters wonder what's going on. And that demand for the release of the files ain't stopping anytime soon. It's just going to increase the clamor for those files to be released. Number two, it makes Ghislaine Maxwell look like the liar she is. And I don't think she's going to get that pardon or commutation of her sentence anytime soon, because she said that she doesn't remember seeing President Trump ever visiting Jeffrey Epstein at the house. Well, the emails show that she does recall that. In that email, she reminds Jeffrey Epstein she remembers that when Trump would visit Epstein at the house. And then third, Michael Wolff, who's a journalist, but it looks like he's giving free legal/PR advice to a pedophile. He needs to come clean as to what this is all about.
There's one email in particular that we don't have context for in which Epstein mentions Trump. He refers to him as the dog that hasn't barked. And notably, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee identify the person who's redacted in this note as Virginia Giuffre, who has never accused Trump of wrongdoing, but these emails show that Epstein says Trump spent hours with her at my house. I wonder just what you make of that and the argument from Republicans that that redaction in itself is meant to imply something that Giuffre never accused Trump of.
Yeah, it's correct. I do think the Republicans have a point here that the name Virginia Giuffre was redacted, but Virginia Giuffre, in her book and in public statements, has never accused Trump of anything improper, said that he didn't do anything improper. The question is whether or not they spent time at Epstein's home. That's still an open question. And also, Virginia Giuffre has had some issues in the past of credibility, which is why she wasn't called as a witness in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. But the fact that Epstein says that Trump spent hours with Giuffre at the house tells me that there's still more that we don't know. And it is consistent with Trump saying that a reason why he broke off the friendship with Epstein is because Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were poaching employees from Mar-a-Lago, and Virginia Giuffre was one of them.
I wonder what you think that members of the administration, including Attorney General Bondi, are presenting right now to Congresswoman Boebert, given that this discharge petition, at least as of the latest math that we've seen, appears to be on its way to passing the House. It's unlikely to get anywhere in the Senate. Very unlikely President Trump is going to sign it after being so vocal in his opposition of it. But it does put members of Congress on the record. So I wonder what you think she might be being presented with that us as members of the public may not be seeing.
I'm not sure. I think it perhaps is just some information on what's in the files that have been kept from the public, perhaps giving her an insider's view because she is a swing vote there and they don't want this stuff to be released, which is a shame because when you have Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who were campaigning for it to be released for many months, saying that there's an Epstein list and we need transparency. And then when they get to be in charge of the FBI, they're saying nothing to see here. So you have the base clamoring for the release, and Boebert is known as a MAGA stalwart, and perhaps they think that she was about to join Marjorie Taylor Greene to release the files. So they're trying to placate her, perhaps by showing, hey, there's nothing to see here, no need to release it. But Boris, I don't know if the Senate is going to resist the release of the file after all this stuff is coming out. I mean, there's going to be more and more pressure every day to release these files because this issue is never going to go away until they are given to the public.
Yeah, we'll see how the Senate ultimately handles it. That is, if it winds up passing the House. We'll see how Representative Boebert reacts after this briefing. Dave Ehrenberg, thanks so much for the time.